is the apocalypse now. The difficult Duchess's worst nightmare has come true. Her response to her father's life or death drama.
Harry called Archie his African.
The quiet buzz started not with a public outcry, but with whispers behind closed doors, inside Westminster, no less. It was a Thursday evening, the corridors empty, the cameras switched off. An administrative motion was filed, a whisper that no one saw coming. It wasn't labeled as urgent, it wasn't called explosive. It was simply labeled administrative clarification. But to those who read between the lines, they knew exactly what that meant. Something was stirring, something big. The inquiry wasn't about Meghan Markle. No, it was about Archie. Sources close to the matter confirmed that this secret verification was set in motion just hours after Tom Bower, the veteran journalist, casually dropped a bombshell at a London literary event. With a cool, calculating look, he leaned back in his chair and dropped a statement that would send ripples through the royal family and beyond. The public has never been told the truth about Archie's birth.
So, William's very matter of fact, but let's...
The room fell silent. No shout, no drama, just a chilling declaration. And then, like a match striking in a dark room, he added, and I'm prepared to defend that statement. Within hours, British media exploded. By the next morning, American outlets picked up the fire, and by midday, the social media frenzy was in full swing. Questions, outrage, and rampant speculation took over every platform. But while the public was riled up, something else, something quieter was happening behind the scenes. In the UK, certain questions don't need proof to spark a reaction. They need concern, and that concern soon reached the halls of Kensington Palace. Late the following afternoon, a plain, unmarked package was left at a private entrance. No return address, no royal seal. Just a note scrawled in uneven handwriting for the future of the monarchy, opened personally. Prince William didn't hesitate. He opened it. Inside was a dossier. No official logos, no polished letterheads. Just raw, meticulously organized pages, timelines, photographs, witness accounts, anomalies, all presented not as accusations, but as unsettling questions. A review of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor's birth, because if there's one thing the royals know, it's that in their world, alignment is everything. The first page hit William like a freight train. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, a timeline review. What followed was a collection of inconsistencies, dates that didn't match, statements that contradicted one another, hospital records that didn't align. Even the language used by palace spokespeople was off. Vague, oddly imprecise. And then the witness account that sent chills down his spine. The account referenced a detail about Archie, a small, distinctive mark, something never released to the public, something only a few people in the royal family had ever seen. William had seen it himself once, years ago, and now someone else had described it in perfect detail. It was enough. He immediately ordered a quiet internal verification. No leaks, no assumptions, just facts, just the truth. But once a question enters the royal family, it doesn't stay quiet for long. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle was already spiraling.
Like becoming a new mum, and tell us a little bit about baby Sussex, as we're calling him.
The headlines hit her like a freight train. Tom Bower challenges Archie birth narrative. Royal baby questions reignite. The media storm exploded. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Lawyers, advisors, PR teams, everyone clamoring for her attention, all speaking at once. But there was one question no one could answer. How much do they know? In a panic, Meghan demanded an immediate legal response. Letters were drafted, threats of defamation issued, but then Tom Bower's response arrived, devastating in its simplicity. Proceed as you wish. Discovery benefits truth. And that was when the real fear set in. Because no matter how much control Meghan had over her narrative, this was bigger, much bigger. And nothing could stop the truth from coming to light, not when institutions like the British monarchy were involved. And where was Harry in all this? Silent. For 2 whole days, no comment, no reassurance, no support for his wife. For the first time, the world began to ask, what kind of father stays quiet? Meanwhile, in a quiet, tense moment, Meghan reportedly confronted Tom Bower directly through intermediaries. It was a confrontation that wasn't about confession, but about the words that slipped, the words Meghan never intended to reveal. The phrase, the woman who gave birth. What followed wasn't an admission of guilt, but the unintentional reveal that the tightly controlled narrative was unraveling. From that moment on, it became clear that this wasn't just about rumors anymore. It was about documents, about verification, and about what happens when a well-crafted story collides sides with an institution that survives on truth and records, not belief. Across the ocean, things began to heat up. Parliament had already begun an inquiry under the guise of constitutional clarification. Nothing scandalous, no accusations, just questions that couldn't be ignored. And as the whispers turned into action, Harry found himself caught in the middle. Meghan too. But while Meghan was consumed by fear and rage, Harry was quietly wrestling with the truth he couldn't ignore. Tom Bower was watching from the sidelines, knowing that the pressure alone was doing most of the work for him. When asked if he feared retaliation, he simply smiled. Truth has a way of surfacing, he said, especially when too many people are invested in keeping it buried. Behind the scenes, Parliament was moving swiftly, creating a small cross-party committee to audit the situation. The monarchy was under review, but no one outside of the palace knew it yet. No press conferences, no grand reveals, just slow, methodical action. And then, one day, Harry returned to the UK. No cameras, no fanfare. He stepped onto British soil like a man walking into the eye of a storm. And in Windsor, behind closed doors, Prince William was waiting. A brotherly confrontation that had been years in the making. William didn't stand to greet him. He didn't smile. He simply slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of the dossier, timelines, signed statements, and one final document that made Harry's blood run cold. A legal opinion from constitutional experts about the potential consequences if the truth about Archie's birth was ever revealed. If there was deception, it read, the monarchy would have grounds to act. William's words were flat but heavy. If this is true, it's bigger than Meghan. It's bigger than you. Harry didn't answer immediately. He stared at the papers, the weight of the truth slowly sinking in. For the first time, he understood the gravity of what they were facing. Is this the cost of truth? And back in California, Meghan too began to crack. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, legal threats growing by the hour. But then, when her lawyer finally reached her, his voice was different. He was no longer confident. Westminster isn't backing down, he said. If this goes public, discovery will be brutal. For the first time, Meghan understood what she was up against. She wasn't just fighting the tabloids, she was fighting the weight of the British monarchy itself. And when Harry returned to California, something had changed. He was quieter, more distant. That night, after the children were asleep, he spoke for the first time, his voice low and final, I'm done lying. Meghan's response was furious. You're choosing them over us, she screamed. But Harry's answer was unwavering. I'm choosing the truth. For Archie, for Lilibet, for myself. And with that, the final break came. Weeks passed, and the world continued to turn. But for Meghan, everything had shifted. What was once a well-curated life, a perfectly polished story of royal exile and Hollywood reinvention, was now a crumbling facade. It wasn't just the media, the public's endless scrutiny. It was the very foundation of everything they had built together, suddenly teetering on the edge of collapse. Her phone buzzed constantly, and each message felt like a strike to her chest. The whispers in her ear grew louder, the walls closing in. Meghan knew that the inquiry wasn't about scandal anymore. It had morphed into something far bigger. Constitutional clarity. The monarchy had always been built on unshakable tradition and lineage. And now, those very foundations were being questioned. Not by a journalist, not by a scandal-seeking tabloid, but by the heart of British governance. At Windsor, William had left Harry with an ultimatum. A choice that was no longer just about family loyalty. It was about history. It was about the monarchy itself. Did Harry believe in the story they had been told for years? The story he had once shared with Meghan? Or had the truth finally pierced through, shattering the illusions of their carefully crafted narrative? He had never expected to be the one to carry the weight of this truth. He had never expected to be asked, did she give birth to Archie? The question haunted him, echoing through his mind with every step he took. But in the quiet of his home, with Meghan and their children nearby, the silence between them grew louder. Meghan was trapped in a whirlwind of legal threats and public pressure, but it was Harry who was being torn apart from the inside out. One night, when Meghan finally allowed herself to show the cracks in her armor, the argument that had been simmering for weeks came to a head. You don't understand, Meghan snapped, her eyes filled with anger and something darker. You have no idea what this is doing to me, to us. I gave everything for this life, and now they're questioning our truth. Her voice broke as the weight of everything, every lie and every truth they had been running from, hit her all at once. Harry stood across from her, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the table. Meghan, it's not just about us anymore, he said quietly, his voice barely barely above a whisper. It's about everything. Everything we've built, everything we've been hiding behind. This isn't just about Archie. It's about whether any of this was ever real. The room fell silent. The walls seemed to close in, and for a moment they both stood there. Two people who had built a life of defiance, only to have it all come crashing down in front of them. And in that moment, Meghan realized the truth Harry had been grappling with for months, the truth they could no longer outrun. Days later, when Harry finally agreed to speak with his brother, the conversation was nothing short of brutal. It wasn't about blame, not really. It was about everything they had built and everything they had lost. William didn't hold back. His words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper into the already fragile bond between the brothers. "You've let this go too far, Harry," William said, his voice steady but laced with the exhaustion of years spent carrying the weight of royal duty. "It's not just about you or Meghan anymore. This is about everything, the monarchy, the country. If there's even a chance that Archie's birth was misrepresented, we can't ignore it. The public won't ignore it." Harry stood frozen, his face pale as he processed his brother's words. "I never meant for it to get this far," he whispered, his voice hoarse. William's gaze softened for a moment, but the weight of what they were facing was undeniable. "The question is out there now, Harry, and once it's out, we can't just wish it away. You have to choose. Will you defend the truth, or will you defend the story?" Harry's heart pounded in his chest as the gravity of the situation sank in. His entire world had been turned upside down, and the one thing he had feared most was now staring him in the face. The truth that Meghan had fought so desperately to protect. The decision haunted him, the words echoing in his mind long after the conversation ended. But one thing was certain, the truth could no longer be hidden. The monarchy was at a crossroads, and so was Harry. He could no longer stand in the shadows of half-truths and lies. The time for silence was over. And back in California, as Meghan prepared for the next round of legal battles and public scrutiny, something in her cracked. She wasn't just fighting a royal institution or a media machine. She was fighting her own fear that the world would never see her the way she wanted them to. Fear that the perfect image she had spent years cultivating would collapse in an instant. The cracks were showing, and they couldn't be hidden anymore. And they couldn't be hidden anymore. And they couldn't be hidden anymore. And they